everybody that knows me knows my words are few. But if there's anything the matter, or anybody that wants to applaud, or anything that wants to happen, remember, I'm the man that hired it. Then the two schools joined together. I don't know if you know it or not, but Mr. Square and I put the two schools together in his kitchen one summer. And the big question was, who's going to direct the band? We knew who, but we didn't know what the other man was going to do. So John's been there ever since I hired him. The funny part of it is he doesn't know enough to quit. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis. I'd like to take just a moment to welcome everyone here this evening. It's a nice tribute to a man who deserves it. And I think your participation in this proves that you thought he deserved it too. As the band president, president of the band sponsors, I'd like to thank John Miliauskas. I've only known John Miliauskas for about 10 years. I'm what you might call an import into the back mountain. But nevertheless, it's been a very close association, and it's turned into a great friendship. And I'm very proud to be a part of it in the last 10 years. I don't know too much about John. I'm sure that there are a lot more in this room that has a lot more to say about John than I could ever come up with. So I'd like to thank the committee first, who've done a fabulous job of decorating the place in order to honor John tonight. And we have one of the committee members here who would like to give us a special tribute. I'd like to present Mrs. Sharon Lane.
Before we go any farther tonight, I'd like to take just a few minutes to honor a very special individual. Now, this is someone who has shared a great deal of her life with the Lake-Lehman Band. Most of it has been done behind the spotlight, but the contribution has been enormous. As duly recorded in the minutes of the band sponsors meeting, and I do forget the date, John Miliauskas married Dorothy Miliauskas. From the beginning of her marriage, she opened her home to band members, coming for lessons 2 and 3 nights a week. We sat in her living room, we watched the TV shows we wanted to watch, not necessarily what she wanted to watch. We spread our books out all over her floor and did our homework, waiting for Mr. Miliauskas to come out and holler, "Next victim." As parents, we all know the strange elephant calls the trumpets make, or the squeaks the clarinets and saxophones make, and so on, as all of our children learn to play their instruments. But it's very hard for me to imagine the cacophony of sound that Dorothy must have experienced and graciously tolerated over the years. Especially when she started to raise her family. Tell me something. How does a mother schedule naps and bedtimes around an evening or a day full of all that noise? Not only did she have the melodic sounds to put up with, but she also had the sounds of sibling members fighting, and I don't mean her children. I mean my sister Terry and I, when we used to fight over whose turn it was to hold the baby, and that was Nancy. If Dorothy wasn't tolerating a parade of budding musicians in and out of her door, then she was busy caring for her own 4 children, while her husband was out molding and shaping the lives of everyone else's children. I'm sure there are many others here tonight who took private lessons from Mr. Miliauskas. Tell me something. Didn't you hope Mrs. Miliauskas would answer the phone when you called to cancel? I know I did. So add 2 more responsibilities to her life, that of the Secretary of Scheduling and also the provider of refreshment. Because in the old days, we used to meet in their backyard to work out the maneuvers for the new field shows, and Dorothy would always provide us with refreshment. So if sharing her husband and her home wasn't enough, now add the fact that she had to share two of her children because JJ and Nancy, who's here with us tonight, were both members of the band. One can only imagine what it must be like to be the wife of the director and the mother of two band members. Okay. Last but not least, I'm sure she tolerated a husband whose mood was not always, shall we say, quite the best. After we dealt with 100 teenagers every day, right, Dorothy? So, we say thank you, Dorothy Miliauskas. Thank you for sharing your husband, your children, and your home. And thank you for how that sharing has enriched our lives. Dorothy, would you please stand? We have a little short history to present tonight, and Debbie Halliday from the class of 1972, Debbie Halliday Price, will present it for us.
Mr. and Mrs. Miliauskas, Mr. Bellis, honored platform guests, fellow band members, former classmates, friends and family. It's good to be here. It's that happy kind of occasion. It was a wise man or woman, I'm not sure which, that once said to me, don't ever let a friend enter or leave the room without noticing. It makes them feel so bad. And I've often noticed since then some people in life who've not been very happy people. And they've slipped in unnoticed and have gone unnoticed. So there are those of us who always try to watch out for people like that because that shouldn't have to be. This evening, there's no doubt, it's not an unfortunate friend who could ever slip away from many memories, legends to live on, quotes to be quoted, stories to be told and retold. But for me and for this evening, and I hope for you, there will be something of a memory in the wisdom of another phrase. Without discipline, there is no love. Without love, there is no discipline. For quite a while now, I've known the beauty and the truth and the power of those words. It did not take James Dobson, famous Christian writer, with his book Dare to Discipline, to teach me about that. Oh no. Long before I knew that gem of wisdom, long before I preached it carefully to each congregation I've known or had the privilege of being with for a while, I met John Miliauskas, who for me is the embodiment of what it means to love with discipline and to discipline with love. He for so many personifies that, and now for most anyone who embodies those qualities for you, other than John Miliauskas, nearly everyone we can ever think of that we've known about. The most visible part, or memorable part, is that disciplining heart. You don't always see the love coming. It kind of sneaks up on you. Don't forget, discipline without love is just punishment. And punishment never seems to teach us much of anything worthwhile, or lasting, or fun. It's amazing how much fun the disciplining for us has become. Some people have a way of staying with you by gathering tonight, by taking the time to plan, as some of you have, bake, prepare, carry, or get yourselves ready and come. In whatever way, by coming this evening, we are saying you have a way of staying with us. I have my own personal memories, which I don't suppose I should indulge myself, but you know, my memories go back to Lake-Lehman, when it was a grade school, high school, and when I used to watch the band from the window, practicing. And then in the parades at Sweet Valley, in mismatched uniforms before he was married. When we used to practice in what became Mrs. Geringer's last home before it was occupied. That's where we had our lessons. Oh, by the way, I wasn't always a drum major. I tried trombone once, for a while, or twice. And we had our lessons there. So you see, I had the advantage of taking those lessons too, and feeling the heat of the moment. At the time, most of us would have said, this is punishment. You're punishing me, making me go back again and again. And how often I heard, I want to quit. I want to quit. I hate it. I hate him. I hate the embarrassment. I hate the work. I hate the fun I'm missing out on. Time has a way of healing all wounds and putting all things in proper perspective. Now, if everyone here doesn't know it, most of you know or can gather by now that I'm a preacher by avocation. Part of making as a preacher is that importance of love and discipline. Think about it. How do you tell an adulterer or an adulteress that they are wrong and love them? Or so many of the other occasions when someone in a bitter feud is wrong, there needs to be peacemaking. Well, I'll tell you, the foundation for that is love and discipline. My good news, which I share most often, most joyously, is that God is that way. Now, lest you think I'm drawing parallels here, there were moments, however, when I thought it was the voice of God. Some of you were with me in my first parade in Nanticoke. And I wasn't going to tell you, but you might as well know that I was drafted quickly into the service as drum major because Keith Swanson had injured his knee in a wrestling accident, and I was snatched from the color guard and pressed into service, terrorized for a few rehearsals. And then we marched into Nanticoke, taken by storm. And it wasn't so bad going down what's the main thoroughfare there, Market Street, but we marched up the steep hill to the square at Main Street area. Well, I'm glad some of you haven't heard this story, because I know some of you heard it at least once or twice. And being a high-stepping band, the parades always had a way of getting away from us, so we formed the new beginning of a new parade. And I was first-time drum major, real charged up, real nervous, so proud. We made it across one side of the square, and we did a column left, the second side of the square, past the reviewing stand, the third side of the square, and to this day, I could swear I heard column right. In my becoming baritone, adolescent, mid-to-pubescent voice, I barked out as I was instructed, color guard, column right. And it went unnoticed. The color guard went around, down God knows what street. And I followed. And about that time, it caught his attention, what was happening. And he raced to my side. a nice Tom fashion round the block, and I can only remember out of my left ear, because you know you're not allowed to move eyeball, head, and I dutifully marched ahead, and I can hear from the left. Stanley! Stanley, come here! There's a band marching down our street! Sometimes they're minorities. That's not so good always. Sometimes they're people who are hurting or who have been hurt. That's not good. But the best laughs are the ones like I just had, which were at my expense. And with great honor on this platform, I share that laughter at the expense of Mr. Miliauskas. Like some older doddering pastors who tell many stories over and make one's bottom weary. But I save that one once as a special treat for each church where I've served, and I always bring it out on Palm Sunday when we talk about the parade into Jerusalem. The point of my story is make sure you know your direction. I was loved and I was disciplined. I was fortunate to have another father figure. Both of them, at any moment you might think, might connect with a swing, but never. It was never physical disciplining, always vocal, carefully controlled, just the right amount of embarrassment, just the right amount of goading, just the right amount of reminding who you are and who you could be if you really put your mind to it. Just the right amount of calling for possibilities and reminding that you're part of something larger than yourself. And that's so important in our lives. Family is the unit that is so precious and important, and it's breaking up all around us, and we lament it, and we feel helpless, like some monsters coming in and eating it up on us. But there are the extended families, and our band family is like that. Doesn't it feel good? This is a reunion. And we're family. We've gone through some of the same tests and trials, or we've journeyed with people who have. We know all about something secret and special that connects us across decades. Some of us don't even know each other, but we know something of a common experience that is rooted in love and discipline. If you're going to take the time to discipline, whether it's children, or a flock, or a band, it takes time. And he gave that. Long before teachers became or were forced to become extra sensitive about extra pay for extra time, he was there, long hours. Careful attention, one at a time. When the gaze was on you, it was on you and nobody else in the world. That's attention. Flexibility. I remember when we made trips with him to Philadelphia in the earlier years of my time in the band to help pre-select music and ideas for field shows, and I remember us worrying maybe he wouldn't be hip enough to take a suggestion for this song, or maybe he wouldn't be modern enough to try this new thing that we saw. But it seems just in the nick of time, he was always ready to risk something new, something innovative, something very different. And there's a lesson in that. Unity, that's a large part of it. Being able, through love and discipline, to foster a sense of unity. And there's nothing that draws a community together like an outside threat. The flood of '72 demonstrates that. Wilkesburg, everybody pulled together. It was amazing how at the same time he could be the architect, the director, the planner, the evaluator, the driving force, and yet he himself was the outside threat that drew us so close together. Because when anyone was grilled or raked over the coals or told, there was always a sympathizing feeling and a sense of support from within. So that loving discipline had a way of forging a unity. The way he always came on the bus after competition, and I'm sure a way in which he'll have the opportunity to do that for coming generations of family and friends, and say an honest word. You did well. You did not do well. You can always trust my opinion, because I will always tell you exactly the way that I saw it. Without love, there is no discipline. Without discipline, there is no love. We count ourselves fortunate to have been loved and disciplined. Thank you.
Before we turn the floor over to Mr. Miliauskas so that he can make some more of those famous quotes for us, I'd like to take a minute here. Would you come over with me, please? And we'll step down here. And just as a token for Mr. Miliauskas and all of his attention to students and for all of his dedication, we'd like to present you with this, and maybe you can take a nice vacation and just relax. And this is from all of your friends and alumni.
Just what are you doing next week? Well, that's very delightful, and I really appreciate it. But I appreciate more than that the individuality that's here, that you would all show us to do me honor with this, and my family too. I have a lot of good memories, and I thought about it. I had a whole year to do my walk and my thinking and some of my teaching, and I've always thought of this position in Lake-Lehman not as a job, but as a privilege. I always felt that the rehearsal time, to me, a 3-hour rehearsal was always 5 minutes. I'm not being phony with you, that's just the way I was. And I really appreciate it. I remember my first job at Lake when I walked in. I was scheduled to go traveling with a band. A passport didn't come through to go to Europe, so I took the job at Lake. I never heard the band. But I met my first boss, Mr. Robert Bellis. And I think at that time we had like 27 members in the band or something like that. And I went to him and I said, being a young guy, I had to start someplace, and I heard this band play, and I took my baton and threw it down to these kids, and I said, listen, this is going to be a band. The same night in Lake-Lehman offices, people were out saying, well, our new band with the staff, the kids with the baton. Well, that quickly started the charisma of discipline, because they were scared of that baton. And that is true. That was the starting point. And another part I was telling Bob, I can always remember about him, that we were going to the Flaming Festival in Renault. And I walked up to him and I said, we're going to do the Flaming Festival. The band's going. And I walked away and I thought, hey, this is my boss. I'm talking to my boss that way. So I went back and I knocked at him and I said, Mr. Bellis, I said, we're going to the Flaming. He said, I heard you the first time. So what my point is, from the beginning of my program here at Lake-Lehman, I always had people who would listen, and I always had people who cooperated with the program. I always had people who were willing to go that extra to become extra good, and that pride kind of set in. Within 6 weeks there, I could see one of my first drum majors I just met here tonight. Haven't seen him in a while. Their pride started showing. This band was starting to turn itself around. It was a motivation for them and a motivation for John Miliauskas to continue from there. And behold, the jointure came about, and I inherited the Lehman band. And from their point on, we had great moments. And I couldn't begin all of the very, very good moments that I had, that I'll always remember the rest of my life, because 99% of those times were good. I taught in the school district, the school board, administrators, teachers, with people who had an interest in what I was doing, because I always did get a comment, boy, they really sounded good. Oh, they really were great. Or, of course, the band come a long way. So that kind of encouragement made John Miliauskas motivated also. And so did my students motivate John Miliauskas. It wasn't totally John Miliauskas. It was Lake-Lehman High School band who takes the vow of the band. And I got to tell you something, and I have to get this off my chest. For years in the community, you heard that John Miliauskas didn't like to fly. So we had a number of cases where we got an invitation to go to how many people heard that? Like the whole group. I had occasion to play in Minnesota last summer, my gal. I'm not telling you no lie. When that plane started up, I got the plane and they flew me from Philadelphia to Minnesota. I get in that plane, I didn't realize how far that sky is up. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a dope in a plane, kids running up to the bathroom? I had my seatbelt on the whole flight. And the guys were all looking at me. So we had the 3 days in Minnesota. We come back to Philadelphia. When we came back to Philadelphia, it was foggy, it was nice. I hope this guy finds the field. When we started down, this is no lie, when this jet came down, this is my first jet ride. Came down to the field as it was descending. This guy, I don't know if it's service driving the plane or if it was. He started back up. And I said to myself, he must have missed it. But then the plane hit, and it hit very hard. And people applauded on the plane. And I said, this is my first jet ride. This guy had, I forget one guy has been drinking or something. No, I was the only guy in the airport looking down to the ground to kiss like the Pope. I was the only guy. That was my ride. The other time was, I've been doing a lot of plans since I left Lehman. And we're coming back to Catskill with a couple of young guys. And I said, I'll ride this guy with driving car. I'll ride with him. And coming back, he said, this guy's about 35 years old, 30 years old. He said, how old are you? And I said to him, how old do I look? He says, 45. I said, you're a smart boy. You're super smart. This last week we were playing in Connecticut Friday, and the other kids on the block was in the same park as we were. Can you imagine 40 kids screaming? When we were leaving, I'm in this van with these fellas coming out of the park, and these kids are screaming. And one of the players is here with me, my friend Julie. I said to them, are they screaming like that noise because we're leaving, or are they screaming because of the group down there? They looked at me strange. But I realized what the musicians have gone through since I've been doing more playing, that there's guys that I hurt too sometimes. And the chops is not holding up like they used to. I fully realize that, but I have a marvelous time doing it. And I hope that, I know out of this band came doctors, lawyers, band directors. I hope all of them get the enjoyment that I do. And I also want to take just a moment to Maureen and Ed Richards played out at LCC for me, and they're also the new band. I want to wish them a lot of luck in the future with the band. I have the highest respect for them, and I hope them a lot of luck. The only disappointment I had, I think, since I left Lake-Lehman, that more people do not take advantage of a community college band that's being sponsored at LCC. And I'm going to tell you why. As a young musician coming up, I can remember and needing more experience, I joined what they call a fireman's band in Dallas. I think I was 12 or 13 years old. It gave me another dimension. The LCC program is another dimension. I know that students in Lake-Lehman, first thing they get their district music, they're looking for a private teacher. Well, let me tell you something. There is a private teacher down at LCC. You just sit and cycle that music, you become a better musician by going there. A lot of people don't think that. A lot of people think success is winning trophies. Success is not winning trophies. You got to go another dimension to win the trophy. It's just not being there or where you're going, who you're going against. It's the other elements of music that make you better. And that experience is another dimension in your life. I had the occasion to come up. The award, I'm very, very grateful that the Lake-Lehman sponsored the John Miliauskas Award. I'm very proud of that award. And how justified the person who wins that award be a justified person. Not somebody who's the most popular person in the band, but the very best in the band. Not somebody who knows somebody or that, but the best playing musician, the best behaved person, and the best qualified person for that award. And I hope that always remains that way. In conclusion, I would like to say thank you for the beautiful tree. And if I don't see you again, thank you everybody.
Not very much you can say after that. He's always been a tough act to follow. So now if you folks would like to renew acquaintances and mingle around and have a bite to eat and have something to drink, we're very fortunate to have all of this here. Thank you very much.
Ha 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 ha.